Now, living in tropical far north Queensland or living in Perth, what are the differences between living in both places, and ultimately which one do I prefer? In today's video, we're going to be comparing basically what my life looks like in both places and my honest review, comparison and opinions on life in both places. Now, the reason I'm doing these two places is because I'm currently living in Cairns in far north Queensland, and I've been living here for the last few months. Going to be living here for the next couple of months as well. We're actually going to be going back to Perth later in the year, but I spent 9 months living in Perth a couple of years ago, and right through till now I've always said that Perth was definitely my favourite place that I've ever lived in Australia. So that's the reason I'm kind of comparing the two, where I live now and my typical favourite place in Australia. For you guys who might be interested in a comparison, but also for you guys who might be considering moving to either one of these places, you can kind of get an idea of which one is better. So before we get into it, make sure you give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, and yeah, let's get into it. Now, Perth and Cairns are at complete opposite ends of Australia. Perth is in the far southwest corner, whereas Cairns is right up in the tropics in the northeast corner of Australia. Very, very different places considering they are in the same country, but yeah. So Perth is most famous for being, well, the biggest city in Western Australia. It's mostly famous for its incredible beaches along the west coast, and also being one of the most remote major cities in the world. Cairns is famous for basically everything that surrounds the town: the Great Barrier Reef, the Daintree rainforest, and also having a pretty unique climate and environment. So let's start off with comparing some different things that I've noticed about life in both places. Let's start off with the weather. So the weather in both places is pretty different. Perth in the south, you do get summer and winter. So winters in Perth did get pretty cold. It did rain a bit, but it was actually quite cold in winter. We actually had to get like a heater for our room because winter there, yeah, was pretty cold. It didn't last very long winter, just about 3 months, and then it started to warm up. Then it got to summer in Perth, and it was so hot. Honestly, Perth's summer might have been the hottest place I've ever lived. It got to the 40s many times. I think there were some days where it got near 45 degrees in the summer, which was literally insane, so hot. Cairns is also similar to that because Cairns is very hot. The biggest difference between Cairns and Perth, however, is Cairns you don't really get so much of a winter because it's in the tropics. It's more wet and dry season, so it's pretty much hot all year round. So if you like the heat, it's definitely a good option. The downside with Cairns is, even though the summer temperatures might be less than Perth, it is so much more unbearable in Cairns because you've got the humidity. I came to Cairns in January a few years ago, and honestly, it is so humid in the summer, literally unbearable, compared to in Perth where the heat is very dry. So even though it's 40 degrees, it's kind of more bearable than 30 degrees would be in Cairns. So which one do I prefer weather-wise? I would probably say Perth. Whilst Cairns is great how it's warm all year round, I do quite like having that 3 months just to have a bit of a winter to kind of give you a bit of a break from the heat. As well as this, summer in Perth is incredible because you can go 3, 4, 5 months without seeing any rain. Compared to Cairns where there is positives weather-wise, but for me that summer, I would not want to live here in the summer, and that's the reason we're going to go back to Perth, is because Cairns summer is pretty unbearable and it rains a lot as well. Now, scenery and environment in both places, Cairns being in the north, it is literally surrounded by rainforest, which is pretty cool. The city of Cairns looks amazing because it is literally surrounded by mountains on like most sides, and the other side is the sea, so it's a very scenic place to live. Perth's a bit different. Western Australia is very flat, and whilst there is some hills and stuff and trees near Perth, the whole area is very, very flat. The main thing that makes Perth so amazing though is the beaches, of course. They are literally the best beaches I've seen anywhere in the world, I would say, is the ones near Perth. There is also some amazing nature spots like Kings Park in the city, which is pretty amazing as well. But the scenery in both places is definitely up there with the best scenery in terms of cities in Australia. I think Perth, more beaches, the water, that kind of thing. In Cairns, you've got the jungle, the rainforest, which is pretty amazing as well. The beaches in Cairns are definitely not anywhere near as good as what they are in Western Australia. Being surrounded by jungle here in Cairns does feel very cool. That's something I do love about it. It's hard to say my favourite for this one. I'd probably say it's pretty equal because I love the jungle and kind of rainforest vibes you get up here in Queensland. But at the same time, Perth's beaches are literally so much better than here. Now, lifestyle in both places, I found that I've been living a fairly similar lifestyle in both places. I think obviously Perth, you've got that beach lifestyle a lot more than here, but the weather being very nice in both places, and also both places definitely being surrounded by a lot of nature, definitely allows you to go on loads of hikes, chill in the sun, and be outside so much. So I would say lifestyle wise, I'm living a very similar lifestyle in Cairns at the moment to what I was in Perth. Now, prices and cost of living in both places, I would say that the cost of living is a bit better up here in Cairns than it is in Perth. Perth is definitely an expensive place to live. To rent is pretty expensive. Food is about the same. I don't find there's a massive difference, but rent in particular is more expensive. Transport is definitely more expensive in Perth. That's not just Perth, by the way, that's every major city in Australia. Transport is a lot more expensive. I've said this before, but transport up here in Cairns is extremely cheap. It's 10 times more expensive in the cities. That's not an exaggeration. So cost of living wise, whilst both places are expensive, in Cairns it is definitely easier to save your money. I would say Perth, being a big city, does make it more expensive, and also there's a bit more temptation because there's more going on. I would say jobs and houses in both places, what have I found between the two? I would say obviously Perth is 10 times the size of Cairns, and there is obviously more jobs going in Perth. Whilst it hasn't necessarily been a struggle to find a job here in Cairns, there's definitely more choice in Perth. Like I said, being a city, there is a lot more choice. Same with houses, there is more choice in Perth, but I would say we found it a little bit easier getting a house here in Cairns. There seemed to be a lot less competition. Whilst there is a lot of houses in Perth, the competition there is insane because I think it's one of the fastest growing cities in Australia, so the competition for houses is pretty crazy. In Cairns, it doesn't seem like there's so much competition. We managed to get this house set up here before we even arrived. The chances of doing that in Perth, I would say, are pretty slim, to be honest. So I'd say whilst Perth has more jobs and houses, the competition up here in Cairns is definitely less. Now, things to do and activities, both places definitely have their benefits when it comes to this. Australia in general is very chilled out, the lifestyle, it's not crazy for activities, and I find that living in both places, most of the time you are just living that chilled out lifestyle. You're going to the beach, you're having coffee out, you're going out for dinners, that kind of thing. In Cairns, you've got some amazing activities to do. We went to Green Island last week, which was incredible. We've done the Barrier Reef as well before. Want to do the Daintree Rainforest and stuff very soon as well. So there's some very cool activities around Cairns to do whilst you live here. In Perth, it's the exact same. There's some really cool trips to do up the coast, explore the amazing beaches. We went sandboarding, went to the Pinnacles Desert. There's also some very, very cool places to see along the west coast as well around Perth. So activities, things to do, both places definitely have their benefits, lots to do in both places. But at the same time, you'll find living in both places, you're not going to be doing these crazy activities the whole time. Like, it is just a very chilled out lifestyle in both places. Now, from living in both places, which one do I sort of prefer living in? Now, I'm not gonna lie, it's actually fairly close. The first time we came to Cairns, we weren't a massive fan, but coming back here and living here for a few months, it is definitely very nice. However, Cairns is small and there's not loads going on, I wouldn't say. It's a small town, and also that summer period where we came last time, when it is literally 35 degrees plus the humidity, is extremely unbearable. And whilst Perth summer is also extremely hot, it seemed a bit more bearable there. And in my personal opinion, if I were to look at a place where I had to live long term, I would still 100% choose Perth. As much as I'm enjoying living up here in Queensland, I still think out of everywhere I've lived in Australia, Perth still tops that list for sure. I think it just has everything. Both places are fairly good for backpackers as well, I would say. That's one thing I would add is backpacker wise, I think, especially if you're from the UK like me, both places do have a lot of English and backpackers, especially Cairns. They're more travellers, you know, staying here for a week, doing the reef, doing the rainforest, whereas in Perth there seems to be a lot more travellers actually living there. Perth also has more events going on as well year round, festivals and stuff. We were looking to go to a festival here in Cairns. We wanted to go to one, but I'm not going to lie, there really isn't much choice compared to in Perth, where there were like 4 or 5 decent festivals to choose from during the summer. So events wise and things like that, Perth definitely wins, and I think Perth wins in my opinion. But it completely depends what you're after. I think being here in Cairns at this time of year, which is winter in Perth, is such a good time to be up here, because in Perth the weather at the moment is pretty cold compared to here in Queensland, where it is so nice, 26, 27 degrees and sunny every single day. So it's a good time of year to be here. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you've been to both places, you can let me know your thoughts, which one you prefer, if you agree with my opinions on both places. I think they are definitely both great options to live in Australia, and definitely at least traveling to them if you're not planning to live there. Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments on this one, and I'll see you very soon with another video.
If you need any help moving to Australia, then feel free to check out the top link in the description for my Moving to Australia guide.